Well, hi guys and girls, welcome back to the spare room. It's Emma again. Today was going to be the trip up to the foundry, get the patterns cast for this, but it's pretty warm and I slept in and it's stuff to do around home, so I'm going to leave that for a bit. Anyway, I've been drawing up and messing around, trying to get some sort of a direction on this armature. It's got to go in here and spin, and it's got to have some sort of register on the ends to align a couple of aluminium end caps. So I originally bought a piece of 1020 bar to machine this out of solid and have basically a milled section in the centre to wind the coil on. And when I look at it, it's getting a bit heavy. This is getting a bit heavy anyway, but if we can keep the weight down, it'd be nice. It shouldn't be particularly important, but you want something you can lift. It's not a very big machine. And I've got this piece of 25 by 25 1020. I got two. Now I'm thinking that might be just the thing. There's plenty enough area on it, I think, to keep it running, and it's going to be quite a bit lighter. There's a whole lot less material in that, and that won't hurt. However, setting this up and machining it's a bit more difficult. What we need is a piece 48mm long. Ideally I'd like a centre drill in each end so I can set it up between centres to machine the centre out and just turn it round, and probably also to wind it a bit later on. So that's one thing. We also need register on each side, so that's important so that this piece is pretty much concentric. If we've got too much wobble or the shafts on each end are out, we're going to find that the thing isn't going to run at all, or it's going to vibrate and it's going to wear bearings out and it's going to touch the magnet. So that's a bit critical. And I've been thinking for a few days how to do this. Ideally, I guess we need to set it up nice and straight and square and on centre in the 4-jaw chuck, and we need to centre drill one end and we need to part it off to length. Machine one end and part it off to length. Then we need to turn it round and centre drill the other end, and then set it up sideways, and we can turn the register on each side, and then we set him up between centres and machine the centre out. So there's a bit of work in that, and it's a reasonably complex little part, but it's got to be much good. So let's get in and set this up in the 4-jaw chuck. So I had to ask some questions because I don't think I've ever done this before, but I did set it up first and part it off just rough, and it needs to be machined to length, and it needs a centre drill, and that needs to be more accurate. So Marc Lecure is a French Canadian guy, fantastic channel, That Lazy Machinist. Look him up, he's got a great video on clocking up square stock in a 4-jaw chuck. And I wondered if this was how it was done, but it's nice to see someone else to do it, because when I was thinking about it myself I was thinking it was a bit amateurish, but he explains it really well. So we've got this set up with the clock, and the secret is to find the absolute low spot in the centre there and to set it up. Now if we have a look, that's within about 1/4 thou all round, which I'm really pleased with. And we need to face this off, and we need to put a centre drill in it, just a little one. So we just bear in mind that this has got to be set up between centres on the shaft, on the armature shaft, and machined round on the ends here later. So it really only needs to be right to length at this moment, at this point, and that'll be a good start. I'm going to undo number 1 and number 2 jaws here, and hopefully it won't need a lot of adjustment to set up the other way around. I'll just take the burrs off him and I'll go and set him up, machine him to length and put the other centre drill in. So probably a half hour later, I've set this up twice because I forgot to mark the length on one side and I can't see down inside the forge or to measure it. So I set it up again, and we've got a centre drill on each side, which is great. Next job is to set it up on this side and this side, just the same, and to machine these registers, which actually align with the end caps, one on each side, which have the shaft in them. So I don't think we're going to use that, but we'll see. So I've drawn these as 40mm, which is 5mm each, or 4mm each side. That's probably not far out what it wants to be. So we might go with that and spend some time and get these set up. They're going to have to go on a bit of a standard or something on the behind them to pop it out from the chuck, so we can get on that. Let's have a look at it when I get it closer to being set up. So I'm just going to go quickly through this here. There's a lot of slow setting up involved. I've set that up that way nice, and I've got a register on there that's just on 40mm and deep enough in a nice sharp corner to be good. So that's that side done. I'm going to turn him over and do the other side, and then we can start thinking about setting him up between centres this way to machine the winding opening or housing in there. So it's another setup job now, and that was pretty time consuming actually. It took me nearly an hour to set that up and get it nice. These sort of jobs are well worth spending the time to get right, because you only get one opportunity really, and I'm fairly pleased with that now. I'm going to take the burrs off him and turn him round, and we're going to have another go at him. And fairly painlessly, about 10 minutes later, there's the second register on the other side, down to size. Everything looks good. I'm really pleased with that. So I've taken some burrs off there. And that's that register there. It's not quite as deep as I've drawn there, but it's plenty good enough, I think. Next job is to set this up between centres, and we're going to machine in here like this and turn him round and machine in here like this. So we come up against a bit of a hiccup. When I set this up between centres, there's no real way to drive it, and I haven't got a drive dog that works. So a friend suggested maybe we could drill these and put a bolt in it long bolt, long screw, and that would work fine. Yeah, it would, except that our register is exactly the same place on the circumference as our screw holes, and I had intended to make the caps and drill them through it, but that's probably not going to work anyway, because the caps are awkward shape and it's just not really an option. So what I've done is made a aluminium cap that's a nice fit on the register, nice tap fit or push fit, and I've marked the centre of it and the centre of that and lined up the marks, put a toolmaker's clamp on and spot drilled them, so we've got the two holes in the right place. Next job is to drill them right through, and I think I'll tap them and we can find a screw and go ahead and set him up between centres. So we've got 4 holes tapped there, right on centre, nice and square. They can actually go right through, but I've tapped them in from both sides to the centre because the tap isn't long enough to go right through. And a couple of short screws, one each side, will be enough to hold the caps in place. In hindsight's a wonderful thing. If I was designing this again, I would have made it this thick and then I got a tapping guide for it, but I didn't. So that'll be plenty good enough to drill the end caps too, I hope. We'll keep that for a bit. So we still have lines marked on there. I'll find a screw to go in there and a little lock nut, and we might set this up and machine it. So we managed to get this set up somehow. Tried a couple of things with varying degrees of success. What I've done now is just screwed a piece of plate on there with a hole to drive it. I can just undo that screw and turn him round. I did make a rod to go in there, a proper rod with a thread on it, and snapped it off. It was crappy steel, I think. This is nice and solid and seems to be working. We're still quite a bit short here. We'll clean the edges up later. The main trick I think will be to get this down to something like where it should be and round. So I've gone a bit at a time. I run out of room back here to take too much more of a cut than that out of it, and I'm going to turn it round and clean the other side up, which will be pretty quick, and take a bit more out. So that's going to take me most of today, I've got a feeling, and we'll have a look at it when we get somewhere closer. So we must be pretty close to down to size there. I'm going to cool that off, and I'm going to give that a rub up with some emery tape and just check the measurements. Have a look, we're right down to those lines on both sides, so that's nice. And I think it just needs a bit of a clean up in there, and we can take them apart. So that's not even a bad finish in there. So let's have a bit of a look. This is what I've got so far. The ends still need to be radius at each end, and what we're going to do is set him all up on the shaft and spin him and turn him, get the air gap right between there and the magnet, which is all fairly important, I think, to keep it minimal anyway. So our winding goes on here, and I've got some 26 or some 22 gauge copper wire, enamel copper wire to do that. hopefully that'll give us a big enough magnetic field, about 3 or 4 layers on there. That's all got to be insulated nicely. Our end caps, which are made from square aluminium, roughly the same shape, will go on each end, and there's a shaft which is 1/4 inch which goes out here like this, so that's starting to give you some idea what it's going to look like. I ordered some 50 by 20 aluminium bar, flat bar, rather than use this, which is alright, but we'd have to cut most of it off, I think, and it seems a bit of a waste. We'll just machine them up out of square with a reamed hole and Loctite the shafts in there in silver steel, and hopefully the rest will go just as easily as this did. There's a fair bit of work in this part, but everything seems to be accurate and I'm very pleased with it. So next thing I guess is the end caps this week. We might go make a bit of a start on them. Anyway, thanks for watching guys, and more soon. Don't forget to subscribe and click the like button. Leave a comment for sure, and yeah, we'll get on and get him finished.